So epithelial tissue is glandular. So the cells are specialized to produce secretions, and those glands could either be endocrine or exocrine. Exocrine glands secrete through a duct to the surface. For example, in our intestinal tract, there are these tiny one-celled or unicellular glands called mucus cells, and they release mucin. The mucin mixes with water to produce mucus. So here is a gland that is exocrine in the middle, and you can see that it is releasing its substance through a tube, and that substance will then go onto the surface. Here's a mucus gland. And the endocrine cells are different in that they release their substance into the surrounding interstitial fluid. It will then travel into the bloodstream to travel elsewhere in the body. Exocrine glands are classed by their type of secretion. There are serous glands that secrete watery solution with enzymes. There's mucus glands that produce mucus, and there are mixed glands that are both serous and mucus. These classifications are not so important. We will talk about some of this, but this is getting into a little too much detail for us. Let's see, I guess we'll just skip that entirely. Which of the following is not a type of epithelial tissue? Areolar. That's a type of connective tissue. Which of the following types of epithelium is the thinnest? That would have to be simple squamous. Connective tissue is different from epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue has cells that are very close together. In connective tissue, the cells are very far apart, and they're surrounded by the matrix, and the matrix is made up of these proteins and ground substance. So there are three different kinds of protein fibers in connective tissue. There are reticular fibers that form a network. There are collagen fibers that produce a very, very strong fat protein that resists stretching. And there are elastic fibers that are stretchy. The ground substance is viscous. That means it's kind of thick. And there are two classes of cells, fixed and wandering. This next section deals with this picture here. And in this picture, we'll see these different types of fibers, the reticular fibers, the collagen fibers. See how thick those collagen fibers are? And then elastic fibers are very thin, but they're very, very stretchy. And we'll see that there's basically two types of cells, fixed cells and wandering cells. And we don't need to memorize all those different types of cells. I'll talk about them because they'll come up, but don't feel you have to memorize those cells. So the fixed cells, well, there's melanocytes, and those are the cells that are found in our skin that produce melanin that gives us color. Macrophages are phagocytes, that is, cells that engulf other substances, such as pathogens. Mast cells are very important for our allergic reactions, so they stimulate local inflammation and defenses. Fibroblasts are the main cells in connective tissue cells that produce all those fibers that you're going to see. The reticular fibers, the collagen, and the elastic fibers. And adipocytes store lipids. Adipocytes are the main cells of adipose tissue or fat. Wandering cells move around. Plasma cells are part of the lymphatic system. They make antibodies. Free macrophages do the same thing that fixed macrophages do, except that they wander and they will engulf pathogens. Stem cells repair damaged tissue. Phagocytic blood cells are similar to the free macrophages, that they engulf pathogens. And lymphocytes are active in the immune response. Adipose tissue is very common. It's found underneath our skin. It's found around many of our internal organs. It's found the pads of your fingers have adipose tissue. It's deep to our eyeballs. And of course, many of us gain adipose tissue in the hips, the waist, and the abdomen. Once you grow fat cells, they never go away. You can empty them out and lose weight, but the fat cells will remain there forever. Dense connective tissue is a very strong, white-appearing tissue. It is found in our tendons and ligaments. You may have had tendinitis at some point. A tendon connects your muscle to your bone. And this tendon is made up of mostly collagen fibers, that strong, very, very strong protein. Dense irregular connective tissue also is made up of collagen, but it's not quite as strong. It doesn't need to resist the strength that the tension that dense regular connective tissue needs to resist. We find dense connective tissue in our skin. So when you see this white stuff outside of muscles, you've seen it if you've eaten chicken, kind of connecting the meat to the bone. That's our tendons, and it's made of these really packed collagen fibers. This is dense irregular in the skin. Membranes in the body consist of synovial membranes. Synovial membranes line our joint cavities, and they make synovial fluid. Mucous membranes line passages that open to the outside, like our mouth, our nasal cavity, respiratory, reproductive, and so on. Serous membranes line cavities that do not open to the outside. So we know those serous membranes as pleura, found in surrounding the lungs and in the thoracic cavity, peritoneum in the abdominal cavity, and the pericardium in the pericardial cavity surrounding the heart. The fourth membrane is the cutaneous membrane, which is our skin. There are three different types of cartilage. The cell of cartilage is a chondrocyte, and one type is hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage is found at the end of our bones. As our bones meet in a joint, they are covered with hyaline cartilage to reduce friction. If you push at the end of your nose, that is hyaline cartilage. Where elastic cartilage, if you squeeze your ear, notice how flexible that is compared to your nose. The ear is made of elastic cartilage. And then fibrocartilage is really allows a lot of shock absorption, resist compression. Fibrocartilage is the meniscus in our knees. It's found between our pelvic bones and between our vertebrae in our spinal column. Hyaline cartilage is at the end of long bones and at the end of your nose. Elastic cartilage in your ear. And fibrocartilage between your vertebrae. Bone is also called osseous tissue. It's connective tissue with a solid matrix. 2/3 of the matrix is calcium salts, and 1/3 is collagen. So we have collagen fibers running throughout the bone, and it gives our bone strength and a little bit of resistance to shattering. There are two types of bones, compact bone and spongy bone, but we'll get into that more in the bone chapter. You can actually visually see the difference between spongy bone. Look at here inside this bone. See how it's got openings? That's spongy bone. And then very dense, thick bone is compact bone. It's very heavy. One of the differences between cartilage and bone is that bone is very vascular and heals quickly. Cartilage does not. What type of connective tissue is the only one with densely packed cells and very little matrix? Adipose tissue. What type of tissue has the most rigid matrix? That must be bone. Do you remember what the name for bone is? That's osseous tissue. What cell type makes collagen fibers? And that would be the fibroblast. Which of the following is located in the intervertebral discs? What type of cartilage? Fibrocartilage, the strongest. What tissue type can best withstand pulling in a variety of directions? Well, transitional is for stretch. I don't know about the pulling.